Greetings, my beloved earlenders. Welcome back to Imagination Station. It's your favorite author, Lisa Walker McCrae, with another compelling story time from the pages of my novel, A Peculiar Kind of Love. Remember, you guys, this video is for entertainment purposes only. First and foremost, big praise to the Most High Yah. And for you all that are still chiming in, much love and appreciation from this way. So, are y'all ready to dive into those imaginations and turn some pages? Cool beans, I thought so. Clarence, set the stage. Okay, loves, quick recap to prime those imaginations. In our last reading, chapter 26, Learn to Live With It, Betty and Larry were comforted by Brenda and Joe as they tried to get through the 8th anniversary of their son Jacob's passing. It was a success. Brenda and Joe enlightened them about Sean's death and all the hurt and pain that came with it. They also dropped a couple of few jewels to help them cope and heal as they continued living. Oh, and let's not forget about Gabe. The sweet soul brought the couple so much joy. By the end of their stay, Betty was ready to try motherhood again. Isn't that awesome? So, let's get into chapter 27 and see what this oil and water is all about. We're back at Serenity Meadows, and Drew is standing before her newly hired crew. Yes, y'all, Drew got some employees. Our girl is standing on business. Now, as much as she wanted to run the B&B herself, it was too much for her. So, she got a crew, which she's greeting now. Good morning, Serenity Meadow crew. I would like to thank you all for coming in today. Drew smiled at the three-man crew, informing them it was the 4th of July weekend, and although she didn't celebrate, Promise Texas did, and that meant business for them. Miss Sue looked over her glasses at Drew, curious. She threw a dish towel over her shoulder, asking what that meant for her in the kitchen. Drew informed Miss Sue that Carl would be by Friday to barbecue so she could relax for the Sabbath. That set well with Miss Sue. But I have a favor. Drew held up a finger accompanied by a smile. Miss Sue knew what that smile meant. Oh gosh, what's the damage, she asked. Drew asked if she could make 3 sides and 2 desserts to go along with the barbecue. Miss Sue smacked her lips, adding she thought she could rest. Drew cozied up to Miss Sue, handing her potty lips, promising to give her Sunday off as well. I don't like you, little girl. Miss Sue laughed, gently thumping the tip of Drew's nose, agreeing to the task. Drew laughed, turning to face an impatient older man. His name, Mr. Pete. Drew gave him orders to be at the check-in counter when the guests arrived. I don't want anyone carrying their bags upstairs, Mr. Pete. Drew glanced over at the impatient man. She knew he'd rather keep the grounds than deal with the guests, but she couldn't afford a bellhop just yet, so Mr. Pete had to do it. Unfortunately, Mr. Pete wasn't much of a people person. He spent most of his time on the grounds or in the greenhouse teaching Gabe about different plants, amongst other things. Now, Gabe was fond of Mr. Pete. Drew didn't know if it was from all the snacks he'd bring him or if Gabe actually felt Mr. Pete's disconnection from the world. Anywho, Mr. Pete received his orders, then walked off grumbling. Drew shook her head, walking over to the front desk with Rain in tow. She asked Rain to go over the registry once more to ensure each guest called to pre-register. Yes, ma'am, will do. Rain ran off to Drew's office to get the registry book. After Rain's return, Drew let out a frustrating sigh, asking her to please keep an eye on Mr. Pete. Rain laughed softly, assuring she would make sure Pete got the bags. Drew shook her head. Out of the 3 people she'd hired, Rain was the only one that followed the rules. Looking over the registry, Rain noticed one of the guests didn't pre-register. Miss Drew, Mr. Stiles booked the nature room for a week, but didn't send his ID or pre-register. And he's due to check in at 2. Drew cringed, informing Rain she thought his check-in time was at 4 because she'd be in Shiloh City around that time. Drew started to become frustrated and pressed for time. There's no way I'll make it back in time to greet him. I'm just gonna cancel. Drew was big on greeting her guests. Rain could see Drew becoming overwhelmed, reason being she'd been trying to get an appointment for months with the investor, and now she would probably have to wait another month. No need to worry, Drew. I'll greet Mr. Stiles. Besides, he asked not to be disturbed his entire visit anyway, so maybe your personal greeting isn't necessary. Drew pondered on Rain's suggestion. She also pondered on Mr. Stiles' request. Of course, she had guests that asked not to be disturbed, but Mr. Stiles' request was for his entire stay, which was very antisociable. Drew eyed Rain. My question is, who comes to a B&B and wants total isolation anyway? That's especially strange, don't you think? Rain chuckled, telling Drew she didn't find it strange at all if it was peace he was seeking. Isn't that what Serenity Meadows is all about? Rain asked. Drew eyed Rain with pure delight before giving her an unexpected hug. That's it, Rain, that's it, Drew yelped out. Huh? Rain uttered. She was confused by Drew's actions. Noticing the question on Rain's face, Drew explained the sentence she just stated was a great slogan for the B&B. Drew added Rain's words to a few of her own. Displaying the invisible words in the air, Drew stated, Serenity Meadows, your home away from home, your peace seeker. Rain was stunned at how fast Drew came up with the slogan from just her few words. Wow, I see why you're known as the queen of advertising, Rain stated, referring back to a personal plaque that hung on Drew's office wall, gifted to her from Chantel when they interned at Cambridge. Drew blushed, giving Rain a shy smile. Yeah, but I'm a little rusty. So the hours passed and the day went on. Drew was now pulling into Jay's place. She noticed a new sign on the entry gate. Zion. Wow, he finally named it, she said to self. Jay had finally given the ranch a name after years. On her drive up, Drew also observed all Jay had accomplished. He had land, a home, livestock, farm equipment, and now a name. She was proud of Jay. He'd birthed the ranch into a successful business. Drew blew her horn. Gabe ran out to greet her. Auntie Drew, he jumped into her arms. Hey, Beetle, Drew kissed Gabe's cheek, handing him a bag. I got you something. Gabe hurried to explore the bag. He pulled out Jessie, a character from Toy Story. He was excited because now she could join her other friends. Gabe informed Jessie of all the other Toy Story characters that were there. Woody's here, Buzz Lightyear is here, Mr. Spell is here, Ham is here, Mr. Potato Head is here, and Alien is here. Drew smiled. She knew how much Gabe loved Toy Story, so she got him a new character every chance she got. Where's your father? Drew asked. Gabe pointed at the barn running ahead of her to show his dad, Jesse. Drew followed. Greetings, my dear friend, Drew jokingly greeted, sliding the barn doors back. Jay was so busy cleaning the stalls he didn't notice or hear Drew come in, so she called out again. I say, hey, Mr. Tate, how are you? Still no response. Jay jumped when Gabe tugged at his shirt, accidentally pulling the earbuds from his ear. He asked Gabe, was everything okay? Gabe pointed at Drew, all while laughing at his father. Damn, Drew, I didn't hear you come in. I see, Drew replied. Gabe was now jumping up and down in the stall, trying anxiously to pull the toy from the bag. Look at Jessie. Auntie Drew got her for me, Gabe announced, explaining to his father who the character was. Jay at the same time was eyeing Drew, wondering why she kept buying Gabe toys after he told her to stop. Drew shrugged her shoulders all nonchalantly. What? He likes him. She then walked over to Jay and brushed hay from his head. She teased him about swimming in the hay. The pair laughed. Yeah, I got one hell of a backstroke. What are you doing here? Jay asked. Sarcastically, Drew told Jay it was good to see him too, and she was doing well. Correcting his rudeness, Jay apologized. "My bad. How are you today, Miss McCain? Are you just fine?" Drew gave him a smile, informing she was in fact doing well and she just left a meeting with an investor. Jay continued his chores. He was happy for Drew. "Wow, so how did the meeting go?" he asked. Drew told him she thought the meeting went well and Mr. Kingston wanted to come out for the whole Serenity Meadows experience the second week in August before making his decision to invest. "But it is looking good," Drew was optimistic. Jay was impressed. Drew had been in business less than 3 months and already had investors. "I'm so very proud of you. I've watched you overcome obstacles most people fail." Jay added she'd taken the talent and ability Yacht blessed her with and built her brand. Pausing his cleaning, Jay walked over to Drew and gave her a hug. "I'm so happy to call you friend. Now can you favor me?" Drew already knew what Jay wanted. She exhaled, freeing herself from the hug. Jay pleaded for Drew to hear him out. "No, Jay, there's nothing to hear. I'm not going." Drew started towards the door. "Not today," she said to self. Jay asked Drew how could she be so cold. Drew stood with her hands crossed, giving Jay a go-to-hell look. Jay walked over to Drew, placing his index finger on the tip of her nose. "Drew, you wrong. Marcus has been locked up for 3 years and you haven't attempted to see him once." "How do you know, Jay?" Drew yelled out. She was starting to get frustrated. Jay had been bugging her about visiting Marcus since he'd been locked up. "Drew, you wrong." Jay went on and on about her disloyalty. Drew looked around the barn to see if Gabe was around. Thankfully, he wasn't. "Okay, Jay, I know how you feel, but that's enough," Drew stated firmly. The pair was now in a full-blown argument. Jay asked Drew did she really know how he felt because he didn't think she did. He went on to tell Drew that Marcus asks about her every time he goes to visit. "Drew, Marcus made a mistake. How can you blame a man for honoring his parents?" Drew couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was about 1 millisecond from going off on Jay. "Are you serious, Jay?" Drew yelled out. She went on to tell him she didn't blame Marcus for what he did for his parents. She blamed him for not thinking of her first. Drew was just about to walk off, but once again paused her steps. "What did you tell me years ago?" she asked Jay. Jay was puzzled. He told Drew a lot of things. Seeing Jay's confusion, Drew reminded him of the words he'd given her on his wedding day. "Give love a chance, Drew. Allow Marcus to love you, Drew," she mocked. Drew then asked Jay, wasn't that what he'd advised her? Jay was silent. "Well, look at where it got me, Jay." Jay exhaled. Speaking to Drew in his calmest voice, he told her he understood her hurt, but after 3 years, she should be over it. "Drew, out of everyone in Marcus's life, you should have been the one with understanding." Jay eyed her. Drew screamed in her head. She then asked herself, how could Jay side with Marcus? There was an awkward silence between the two. Meanwhile, in the house, Gabe was about to give Dina the 411 on his father and Drew's argument. He hopped in one of the counter stools. "Daddy and Auntie Drew arguing again," he informed. Dean turned to look at Gabe. She shook her head. "Are you serious again?" she asked. Dean then went on to say the pair had been like oil and water lately. "Yep, Daddy's mad because Auntie Drew didn't go see the man in the picture, the man that's in jail." "Hunty," Gabe telling all their business. "Boy, find that child's place and stay there." Anywho, back in the barn, Jay was still trying to reason with Drew. He told her he understood Marcus should have thought about his actions first, but she shouldn't allow that to come between them. It already has, Drew voiced with no apology. Jay hated when Drew became this difficult to deal with. He rolled his eyes, accompanied by a frustrating exhale. Drew told him it was easier for her that way, and why couldn't he understand that? She then stormed from the barn. Jay had gotten on her last nerve, and right now the best thing for her was to get away from him. "Yeah, run off like you always do," Jay yelled out, making his way to the house. "Oh, trouble, trouble, trouble." Let's continue. Jay walked into the house and slammed the door. "Ugh," he growled. "Drew makes me so angry when she's difficult to deal with." Jay then walked over to the refrigerator and grabbed the water, then slammed its door. Dean hesitated to give any advice. She hated getting between him and Drew. "Here, baby," Dean handed Gabe a sandwich she prepared for him. Jay paced back and forth, still on the rant about Drew not visiting Marcus and how hard-headed and stubborn she was. Dean and Gabe eyed each other. They'd gotten used to the little arguments between the two. "Daddy is always mad at Auntie Drew," Gabe blurted out. Dean corrected, informing Gabe his dad wasn't mad at Drew, just a little upset. "Don't look like it to me," Gabe chuckled, taking a bite of his sandwich. Noticing Gabe was getting involved, Dean told Jay to calm down, that he was making something out of nothing. Jay paused his rant. "Something out of nothing?" he asked. Dean didn't back down. She stood firm and told Jay, yes, something out of nothing, that he knew Drew better than anyone and knew for her, as long as Marcus was out of sight, he was out of her mind. Dean then reminded Jay of how Drew dealt with things. If she doesn't see Marcus, talk to Marcus, or even smell him, she doesn't have to deal with the pain Marcus brought her. Dean walked over to Jay and kissed his nose in hopes to calm him. She told him she understood he wanted them together, but that needed to be their decision. Then Dean asked Jay had he ever thought about how much it would hurt Drew to see Marcus locked up like that. With a gentle kiss to Jay's forehead, Dean added, "Have you considered she may have tried to go see him, but just couldn't bring herself to do it? I love you, Jay, but I really think you need to be selfless at this point." Jay thought about Dean's words. Woo! Highs and lows, highs and lows. There's always something to keep this village on their toes. Unfortunately, this concludes our story time for today. I hope you guys have been entertained. If so, meet me back here at Imagination Station for more. Until then, think about this. The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you can't do. Y'all bless this reading and yourselves. Smooches.